Hey, you know what would make your customer service help desk way better? Dumping it and then switching to intercom. But you're not quite ready to make that change. We get it. That's why Finn, the world's leading AI customer service agent, is now available on every help desk. Finn can instantly resolve up to 80% of your tickets, which makes your customers happier and gets you off the customer service rep hiring treadmill. Finn by Intercom, the leading customer service AI agent, now available on every help desk.
Nordstrom brings you the season's most wanted brands. Skims, Mango, Free People, and Princess Polly, all under $100. From trending sneakers to beauty must-haves, we've curated the styles you'll wear on repeat this spring. Free shipping, free returns, and in-store pickup make it easier than ever. Shop now in stores and at Nordstrom.com.
Hello and welcome to mini episode number 439 of Real Life Ghost Stories. And I have 3 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from the 12th of January 2025. And story number 1 comes from Anonymous. I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The year was around 1995. I was in my early 20s, a college student living with my then boyfriend. Calgary isn't a very old city compared to other parts of Canada, but somehow I found a relatively old apartment for us to rent. It was located in the centre of the city and was built in the early 1900s, which for Calgary is ancient. The building had shops below and little apartments above. It was a run-down, one-bedroomed apartment, but had tons of charm, with high ceilings and early 1900s fixtures. I absolutely loved the clawfoot tub. Being a fan of history, I really loved this little apartment. My boyfriend affectionately called it the Shoebox because it was tiny. When we first viewed the apartment, I noticed that a huge chunk of the hardwood floor in the living room had been crudely replaced with newer wood. I joked for a second. Did someone die on the floor? The patch was honestly person-sized, but in the end I thought it just added to the quirky charm of the place. The first strange thing that happened was that a whole stack of bills and mail went missing, vanished. We were poor college kids, so we probably just took this as a blessing in disguise. The next odd thing was our cat. A sweet little ginger tabby. She would constantly hiss at one corner in the kitchen. It was so strange. She had never acted like this before. We had our bikes stored in that corner, so I moved them, but she still hated that spot, hissing and growling at nothing. We had to start feeding her in the living room because she absolutely refused to go in the kitchen. I started to feel a bit off about the place. Oddly, my boyfriend and I began bickering more than usual, just irritated with each other for no apparent reason. One day I was home alone and really didn't like being in the apartment by myself anymore. I never felt completely alone, like someone was always watching. I was having a shower in the beautiful clawfoot tub when I heard a loud, deliberate knock on the bottom of the tub. It was freaky. I knew the bathroom door was closed, and the cat was in the living room, so it couldn't have been her. Besides, the bathroom was off the kitchen, and she avoided that area like the plague. I shut off the water, soap still in my hair, and waited with the cat in the living room until my boyfriend came home. It was just the plumbing, sweetie, but deep down I knew it wasn't the plumbing. A couple of weeks later, we were sitting in the living room with friends, drinking wine and chatting, when all of a sudden the old defunct coil radiator started shaking violently back and forth. It shook so much that my boyfriend leaped across the room to catch a potted plant sitting on top. There were 5 people in the room that evening and we all saw it. It was terrifying. We moved out as soon as we could. Now, 30 years later, my drive to work takes me right past the same street. The strip of little shops is long gone, replaced by a huge luxury high-rise apartment building. I often wonder if the new condo owners experience any activity. What I wouldn't give for there to be some sort of database for houses where people can say, you know, I had this experience in this house, and you could look up your house on that database and see if any previous people have had paranormal experiences in that house. I know it would be not manageable in real life, okay? I know it will probably be dangerous and not good, and and there would be lots of problems with it, but how cool would it be to be able to go back and look and see what weird shit has happened in your house before, if any weird shit? And then you could either be like, I feel so validated, or, oh, listen, it's fine. Nobody else has experienced anything in this house, so there's probably logical explanations. I feel like there could be a lot of benefit to it. And we know that animals, that pets, are paranormal beacons. And it sounds like that cat went into the shoebox and went, something weird going on in this kitchen. I'm not happy about it. Your cat was obviously seeing or sensing something that you couldn't, and therefore you should have burned the entire place to the ground, to be honest. And I do take personal umbrage with stuff happening when you're in the bath. Like, the bath is such a sacred space. I don't want to be in the bath and feel like somebody's watching me. I don't want to be in the bath and feel a knock underneath the bath on the bottom of the tub. Like, that is so scary. When I stayed overnight in the place in Chester, in Ye Old King's Head, I was sitting on a bed and I felt a knock on the boards on the bottom of the bed, like from underneath me. And honestly, it was so unmistakable. So I completely understand what you mean. And there's kind of no way of being like, oh, it was definitely the plumbing. Like, you know it isn't. And if you're in a roll top bath, there's no plumbing underneath. There's just a gap between bottom of bath and floor, you know? I am glad though that your boyfriend, after being like, it was just the plumbing, sweetie. And I get it. We all want to reassure the people that we love that nothing scary is happening. And then you're seeing that old radiator shaking violently to the point where he's like, I'm going to have to save this potted plant from oblivion. Look, that's called validation. And, I don't condone scaring people, but if it means people get validated, then I'm here for it.
Nordstrom brings you the season's most wanted brands. Skims, Mango, Free People, and Princess Polly, all under $100. From trending sneakers to beauty must-haves, we've curated the styles you'll wear on repeat this spring. Free shipping, free returns, and in-store pickup make it easier than ever. Shop now in stores and at Nordstrom.com.
BetterHelp Online Therapy bought this 30-second ad to remind you right now, wherever you are, to unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath in and out. Feels better, right? That's 15 seconds of self-care. Imagine what you could do with more. Visit BetterHelp.com/randompodcast for 10% off your first month of therapy. No pressure, just help. But for now, just relax.
And our second story today comes from Tiffany. I previously wrote to you about the very noisy, attention-seeking, possibly shadow figure that kept me awake at night for years when I was a young single parent with 3 kids. I told you about the noises of someone apparently going through my things at night, while both my husband and I lie awake in bed with no obvious explanation. I also wrote about our trip to Salem, and my husband's just desserts when he made fun of me, but was then the one to get scared. I also told you about how I can't quite reconcile the fact that I do not believe in anything really, and that these things keep happening with witnesses, I may add, and no easy way to write them off. In my last update, I believe I told you the new house is normal and nothing weird has happened. It appears that I spoke too soon. I have 3 daughters, 17, 12 and 10. My middle child, Z, is something of a night owl. That may be an understatement. She is practically nocturnal and always has been, even as a baby. It is not uncommon for her to make a full meal or even bake cookies, banana bread or other treats in the middle of the night. I once woke to find a full-course breakfast, including sausages and bacon, ready to be eaten. She is also the most serious of my children, while somehow managing to be quite funny, incredibly type A, painfully awkward socially, and a huge fan of horror films. The last she learned from her older sister, not me. Anyway, Z spends most nights awake, unless she has school the next day. She also slept on the living room couch for 2 months to avoid putting her laundry away. It makes sense that this story, therefore, starts with her. A few months ago, she informed me that she hears footsteps up and down the hall at night. This I felt easy to explain away because my husband and I both use the bathroom a lot at night. For context, my room is at the end of a hall to one side, and hers is at the end to the other side. Then in the middle is our sister's room and the bathroom. At the end to the left is the living room, to the right is the kitchen, at the back of which is the opening to the basement, and to the right of that is a sunroom which opens to the backyard. Currently we have a litter of 9 6-week-old German Shepherd puppies living in this room. Anyway, to use the bathroom in the night I do have to walk half the hall, and that was my explanation for the footsteps. Her response was simply, "I don't think that's it." To be honest, I do not like the hallway at night, a fact I previously kept to myself. In the kitchen I put a motion sensor nightlight next to the trash can and a small storage cart. If I use the bathroom at night, the nightlight is always lit, 100% of the time. Going to the bathroom is fine, but on the walk back to my room I always feel as though someone is standing in the kitchen just watching me. Both of these I explain away. Perhaps the light doesn't work right, and that watched feeling is due to feeling vulnerable alone in the cold, dark house. Basically, it is just me spooking myself when I have to pee. One positive is that I started drinking less at night so I could avoid the situation altogether. Then, a couple of weeks ago, Z dropped a bombshell on me. I picked her up from a friend's house, and in the car she was telling me about the day's events. Mid-conversation, she very casually said, "Oh yeah, I think our house is haunted after all." As matter of fact, as if she was reporting what she had had for breakfast. "Why do you say that?" I probed. "Sometimes I hear people talking at night," she explained. At first it was a girl like my age, but I could not hear what she said. Then last night I was walking down the hallway and I heard an older woman say, "Come here." Her voice was deeper. When I commented on how blasé she was about the situation, she just responded that it isn't like they can do anything to hurt her, and she didn't feel any reason to be scared. My husband was driving at the time, and the three of us kind of just acknowledged that it was weird. Then, sometime in the middle of the night last night, I woke to find my husband standing in our room with all the lights on, just staring. New England winters are very dark, so my immediate thought was that he was getting ready for work, and how I felt as though I had just fallen asleep. "Is it time for work already?" I asked groggily. "No," he answered. I heard voices talking at the end of the hallway. Apparently, he woke to the sound of someone talking at the other end of the house, and it woke him up. As he heard what he assumed was one of the kids talking, some of the puppies began to bark loudly. It was the voice of a preteen girl, and Z was the obvious culprit, so we went to tell her to go to bed. Except when he opened her bedroom door, she was sound asleep. And in the next room, her sister was as well. He then turned all the lights on to check if someone was in the house, and of course there was no one. He then came back to the room without turning off any lights, I may add, and just stood there, staring at me for a minute. Then he said something that ensured I would not be able to get back to sleep. "You were talking in your sleep again." "Oh yeah? What was I saying?" I asked. "Hallway corner. Hallway corner. You kept repeating it," was his response. In the morning he clarified that it almost sounded as if I was giving someone directions. I tried for a very long time to remember what I was dreaming, but to no avail. By the look on his face, that was as unsettling for him as it was for me. Who was I talking to? While trying to go back to sleep sometime after using the bathroom and turning off all the lights, I confessed how I do not like the hallway at night. "Is it because you feel like someone is watching you?" "Sometimes I feel it too." Z sounds like a really, really cool kid, to be honest, and I love her attitude of just like, "Hey, listen, right, the house is haunted, they're not going to hurt me, so I'm just going to ignore it. You know, it started with footsteps, then I start hearing conversations, and I'm just going to accept that it's happening, and I'm just not going to worry about it." And honestly, I can't express how much I love the fact that she slept on the living room sofa because she didn't want to do her laundry. I think everybody can get on board with that. And that's the kind of problem-solving thinking that we all need. And I wonder if this instance, if it's some sort of residual energy, you know, that's playing back at night time. Although the sound of kind of a middle-aged woman whispering or saying "come here" to Z in the middle of the night kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, to be honest. Because that sounds intelligent, right? That sounds like something is interacting with her specifically. I am glad, though, that your husband also heard it, that he's hearing these voices. I guess for Z, she must be like, okay, well, at least somebody else has heard it now too, and it's not just me. Because, as somebody who stays awake at night time a lot, it sort of feels like you're the only person in the world awake, which is very, it's very selfish thinking, but you do kind of feel a bit alone and lonely in the world when you're awake in the middle of the night and nobody else is, or it feels like nobody else is. Of course, there's other people awake, but for her being a night owl and experiencing all this, she must be like, okay, well, Dad's experienced it too, so it's not just me. And maybe there's a mix of things going on. Maybe there's some residual energy. Maybe there's an active, intelligent entity in the house. And whatever it is, like maybe you are communicating with it at night time. Like we've said countless times before, weird shit happens in your sleep. I think being in your sleep means that you access some sort of primal state where you can communicate with people on a different dimension, on a different plane, whether they're living or dead. Listen, who knows? Maybe you are communicating with people in the hallway. I can't imagine what it must have been like for your husband, though, to be like, right, you know Z's story, and then you hear people talking in the hallway, realise it's none of the kids, and then you come back to the room and your wife is lying in the bed, repeating hallway, corner, over and over again. Listen, I'd be drop kicking you all down the stairs. And our final story today comes from Chesca. My father is a builder and he bought this house in Suffolk. He ended up building on the land to the side of the house. A family home for me, my 3 siblings and parents. I had always had a feeling about the house but never expressed this to anyone. I guess hearing creaks around the house, you call them the house settling, especially with a new build. However, this one night was the scariest night. I'd gone out with some friends for the evening to the pub. I had not been drinking as I was driving home, and we were leaving to go away early in the morning. I arrived home at about 10 or 11 p.m. I remember thinking I was hungry, but I didn't get anything. I just went straight up to bed. It wasn't long until I heard this awful noise of someone or something running up and down the stairs. I was in bed. Everyone in the house was in bed. I received a text message from my sister telling me to go to bed and shut the fuck up. I texted her back the same message. It wasn't her. I quietly crept to her room and asked her why she was messing around and go to bed, and she denied it again. I investigated the stairs and the hallway, and there was no sign of anyone or anything that could have made the noise we both heard. In the morning, my mum said to me, "What were you doing last night? You made so much noise going through the cupboards." I told her it wasn't me and explained what me and my sister had heard. Nobody had an explanation for this, and we never spoke about it again. I have recently, within the last 5 years, I'm now 32, bought a house, an old house with my husband. Although the house has noises, it's old and that's what we put it down to. We have woken twice to the TV downstairs turning on by itself and around 2 or 3 a.m. There is nobody or nothing in the house which could have caused this. We haven't experienced anything since this, nor do we feel anything living here. Oh my God, that just gave me such heebie-jeebies. There's something about running footsteps that is just infinitely worse than hearing footsteps themselves. Do you know what I mean? You're lying in bed and you hear footsteps. Maybe there's a way that you can rationalise it. You sort of think, I can outrun this ghost, But if that thing is, if something is sprinting up and down those stairs, the sound of that gives me the absolute heebie-jeebies. Like, that is so terrifying. And I'm sure your sister must have been like, what is this one doing running up and down the stairs after coming in from a night out, like? But you were all clearly lying awake hearing the same thing and all thinking that it was each other. And I'd love to know if this was like an isolated incident, because I understand what you mean. A new house, creaks and groans, you hear sounds and you think that's the house settling, whatever, especially if there's a lot of wood in a house. But then after a while you start to think, oh, that's a new noise. That's not the sound of the house settling. Like, I'd love to know if other stuff happened in the house besides that one particular evening. And it's interesting because we always think of haunted houses as being like older houses, hundreds of years old. But weird shit happens in new build houses too. And sometimes I wonder if it's just about the people in the house. If you attract something, if you're more sensitive to stuff, I don't know. I think maybe it's a heady mixture of all of the above. And if in your new house, this entity or whatever it is, if it only turns on the TV at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm okay with that. I'll let that slide. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Anonymous, Tiffany and Chesca for sending your stories. Remember, the last story came from the 12th of January 2025. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you can get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
Nordstrom brings you the season's most wanted brands. Skims, Mango, Free People, and Princess Polly, all under $100. From trending sneakers to beauty must-haves, we've curated the styles you'll wear on repeat this spring. Free shipping, free returns, and in-store pickup make it easier than ever. Shop now in stores and at Nordstrom.com.